night is calm, and the ancient world lies beneath a blanket of quiet darkness. Before history formed its first memory, before kings carved their names into stone, before the oldest tablets were pressed into wet clay, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates breathed slowly in the deep stillness of time. The air was warm, carrying the faint scent of distant reeds, and the soft whisper of the rivers slid through the plains like a lullaby. In this untouched world, humanity was young, gentle, and curious, guided only by the rhythms of nature and the flickering glow of firelight. People lived close to the earth, shaping their days around the movement of the sun and the quiet shimmer of stars that stretched endlessly across the sky. And though they did not yet have words to describe it, they sensed that the world around them held secrets older than memory itself. As you let your breath slow, imagine lying beneath that ancient sky. There are no lights of cities, no machines humming in the distance, only silence, only stars. They shine so brightly that the darkness feels almost alive, as if the heavens themselves are watching with quiet attention. Men and women gather around their small fires, sharing simple stories of the winds, the animals, and the mysteries of the night. They look upward and notice how the stars seem to move, how patterns drift across the sky, how the moon grows and shrinks, how certain bright wanderers glide through the heavens like glowing travelers. They do not yet understand astronomy, but they feel that the sky is speaking softly, patiently, almost like a parent guiding a child that in the far distance, beyond the plains, beyond the rivers, beyond the horizon itself, something stirs. Not a person nor an animal, but a presence, ancient and vast, watching quietly, waiting, long before humans spoke of gods, long before priests built temples, long before myths were etched into stone. There were legends whispered only by the earth itself, legends of beings who descended from the heavens, luminous and powerful, carrying knowledge and purpose. These beings would later be called the Anunnaki, the Great Ones, the Lords of the Sky and the Earth. But in this moment, in this quiet dawn of civilization, they remain only a feeling, a distant possibility, a whisper carried by the wind. Villages rise slowly from the earth, shaped from mud bricks and simple reeds. People gather water from the rivers, plant grains in the fertile soil, and watch over their herds with patient care. Days blend softly into nights, and nights stretch long and peaceful under the star-filled sky. Humanity grows, learns, and dreams. They begin to notice patterns not only in the stars, but in the world around them. The river floods at certain times. The plants grow and wither in cycles. The moon follows a rhythm. The sun returns without fail. And in the dreams of some, images begin to appear. Tall figures of light, voices that echo like distant thunder, shapes that do not belong to the world as they know it. These dreams feel different from ordinary thoughts. They feel older, larger, almost as if they are memories from somewhere else, drifting down into sleeping minds. The people wake and share these visions quietly, wondering what they mean. Some feel comforted, others feel humbled, but all of them sense that these dreams are not accidents. They are messages, warnings, invitations, and slowly, gently, word by word, the earliest stories of the Anunnaki begin to take shape. The land continues to change. Villages grow stronger. Tools become sharper. People gather in greater numbers. Small trading routes form along the rivers. Hunters, farmers, craft makers, and storytellers meet beneath woven tents, exchanging food, goods, and tales of the stars. Each generation sees farther than the one before, building upon the quiet knowledge of their ancestors. And then, one day, beneath the warm morning sun, the first great city takes shape. Eridu. The ancient Sumerians, Eridu was not merely a settlement. It was the first city, the place where order began, the place where the foundations of kingship were laid, the place where heaven and earth touched. Later, they would say it was the home of the god Enki. Later, they would carve stories of divine descent. But for now, in our journey, Eridu is simply a rising shape of mud-brick temples and reed-roofed homes. Touched by morning light, life in Eridu feels different. The air is filled with possibility. People sense that they are being guided, though they cannot explain how. Their hands shape clay in ways they never learned. Their minds imagine structures that no previous generation attempted to build. Their eyes lift toward the sky with questions deeper than words. They feel that someone is watching, someone is waiting, someone is preparing them for something greater. Far above, in a realm described in ancient myths as shining and distant, the Anunnaki observe patiently. They do not hurry. They measure time in cycles, in ages, in rising and falling worlds. To them, humanity is a young flame, fragile, bright, full of potential. The Anunnaki wait until the flame grows steady enough to carry knowledge without being extinguished. They wait until humans can understand stories, symbols, teachings. They wait until humans can build temples, cities, and memories. And when the moment comes, they will descend. But not yet. For now, humanity dreams. And in these dreams, the first true contact is made. Villagers begin to describe figures tall as mountains, their bodies glowing like the sun, their voices echoing like water inside deep caverns. Others speak of beings who stand at the edge of fields, watching silently before fading into the morning mist. Children describe feeling a gentle warmth when they look at certain stars. Elders sense a shift in the world, a soft gathering of energy as if the land itself is preparing for something extraordinary. Animals behave strangely. Birds move in patterns that seem deliberate. The winds carry a new scent, something metallic, something strange. The night sky grows brighter. The moon appears fuller. The stars shimmer with unusual clarity. A quiet tension forms in the air, though no one feels afraid. Instead, they feel anticipation, like the moment before rain touches dry soil, like the stillness before dawn. And then, something changes. Not a sound, not a light, not a shape, but a presence, a deep, ancient presence that feels older than stone, older than rivers, older than thought itself. It settles softly over the land, like a warm blanket, like a whisper that rests on the skin. People pause in their tasks, sensing it. They do not understand it, but they feel it. Something immense, something gentle, something powerful drawing near. The world holds its breath, and so do you. Your body relaxes deeper. Your mind drifts softer. Your breath slows to a calm, steady rhythm, because the story is only beginning. The Anunnaki have not yet arrived, but the moment is close, close enough to touch, close enough to feel. The quiet before the celestial dawn, the last breath before the descent, and the gentle pulse of destiny moving across. The earth, all unfold in peaceful silence. You drift deeper into calm, as the ancient world prepares for the arrival that will change everything. As the world continued its slow awakening beneath the soft glow of ancient starlight, something unseen began to move across the fabric of the heavens. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into years, and the quiet rhythm of life in the early cities grew steadier with each passing season. People shaped bricks, tended fields, traded grains and pottery, and shared gentle stories beneath the moonlit sky. Yet beneath their daily routines, a subtle change lingered in the air, quiet but unmistakable. The winds felt different, warmer at night, cooler at dawn. The animals grew more alert, their ears turning toward sounds no human could hear. Birds altered their patterns, circling in shapes that seemed intentional. Even the flow of the rivers felt touched by something unseen, as if the waters themselves sensed a coming transformation. Those who were sensitive to dreams began to experience strange visions, soft glimmers of towering shapes, warm light descending through clouds, voices as calm as distant thunder. One night, beneath a clear sky where every star shone like a polished gem, a group of elders gathered by a fire outside Eridu. The flames crackled softly, casting gentle shadows that danced across the ground. The elders spoke in quiet tones, sharing what they had begun to notice. Some dreamed of shining figures standing at the water's edge. Others heard whispers in the wind, words they did not understand but somehow recognized. A few felt a warmth on their skin even during the cool night, as if touched by sunlight that had somehow slipped into the darkness. The youngest of the elders, a woman with silver hair and clear eyes, closed her hands around a small clay cup and gazed toward the horizon. She spoke softly, not with fear, but with wonder. She said that the world was preparing for something older than memory, something that once shaped the stars themselves. Her voice carried the tone of a person speaking truth, not imagination. And though the others did not fully understand her words, they felt a calm acceptance settle within them. Something was approaching, something vast, patient, and ancient. As the night stretched on, the stars above began to shimmer in a way no one had seen before. They seemed brighter, sharper, almost alive. The constellation humans would one day call the Pleiades pulsed gently, as though communicating a message across the cosmos. The moon glowed with unusual clarity, illuminating the fields with a soft silver sheen. People stepped outside their homes and looked upward, sensing that the sky was now more than a background. It was a doorway, waiting to open. Children pointed at a cluster of stars that formed a strange line, glowing with a faint golden hue. Elders watched in silence as the line shifted slowly, deliberately, as if guided by an unseen hand. The city grew quiet. Even the animals lowered their heads. A hush fell over Eridu, so complete that the crackling of fires sounded like distant thunder. And then, in the deep stillness of the sky, a soft hum appeared. It was not loud. It was not frightening. It was like the vibration of strings plucked gently by invisible fingers. A warm resonance that moved through the air, through the ground, through the bodies of every person who stood beneath the sky. The hum grew steadier, never rushing, never overwhelming, simply present. Like a heartbeat echoing from somewhere far beyond the stars, people looked to one another, their eyes wide but calm. They felt the sound more than they heard it. The hum carried familiarity, as though it had been heard before in dreams, in visions, in stories whispered by ancestors long forgotten. As the sound vibrated gently through the night, individuals began to feel memories stir within them. Memories of warmth, of light, of voices that once spoke to the soul rather than the ear. Soon after, faint streaks of light appeared in the sky. They were not meteors, nor stars falling, nor clouds reflecting moonlight. They moved slowly, gracefully, as if following a deliberate path. Golden in color, warm and soft, these streaks drifted downward in arcs that curved gently across the heavens. People watched silently, their breath held, their hearts steady. They felt peace, not fear, a sense of returning, of waking something ancient within themselves. The lights continued to descend, drawing closer to the horizon. Their glow illuminated the fields, the rivers, the rooftops of Eridu, casting long shadows and giving the world a dreamlike quality. Some said they saw figures within the light, tall silhouettes, graceful and serene, their forms flickering like candle flames in a gentle breeze. Others saw only brightness, but felt the presence of something kind and purposeful. The hum deepened slightly, still warm and soft. Children fell asleep in their parents' arms, lulled by the soothing resonance. Elders felt their minds quiet, their thoughts slipping into calm clarity as if a veil had lifted. The lights hovered above the horizon, drifting like glowing ships across a cosmic sea. And then, slowly, they began to fade, not vanishing completely, but dimming to a soft glow that rested just above the land. For several nights, the lights remained there. They moved gently across the horizon, rising and falling with a rhythm as steady as breath. People began to gather at the edges of the fields to watch, feeling drawn to the glow. They brought offerings of grain, fruit, and handmade pottery, though they did not yet know why. They simply felt that something sacred was unfolding. One night, a young shepherd walked alone to the riverside, guided by an inexplicable urge. The sky was clear, the lights hanging low and warm. As he reached the water's edge, he felt the air shift around him, so lightly that he thought at first it was a breeze. But then it grew warmer. The water rippled. The ground hummed gently beneath his feet, and the closest of the golden lights drifted toward him. It stopped just above the river, hovering like a sun held gently in the night. The shepherd felt no fear. Instead, a calm washed over him, so deep, so profound, that his legs grew weak. The light pulsed once, softly, and then, within the glow, a shape appeared. Tall, radiant, still, a figure of light. The shepherd could not see a face, but he felt eyes upon him, eyes full of understanding, ancient and patient. The presence felt familiar, like an old friend whose voice you remember from childhood but cannot place. Slowly, the figure lifted a hand, not with urgency, but with the quiet grace of one greeting another. The shepherd fell to his knees, overwhelmed not by fear but by awe, by the warmth that filled his chest, by the sense that he was witnessing something that had been foretold since the dawn of time. The figure did not speak with words. Instead, a thought, gentle, calm, clear, echoed softly in the shepherd's mind. It was not a command, not a warning, but a reassurance, a message of peace, a promise that something important was coming, something that would shape the future of humanity. The light flickered once more, then dimmed softly and drifted back toward the horizon. The shepherd remained kneeling long after it had gone, feeling the warmth linger in his chest like an ember carried from the hearth. When he finally returned to the village, his eyes held a distant glow, and his voice trembled as he told the elders what he had seen. They listened with deep attention. No one doubted him. They had all felt something in the air, something in the sky, something in their dreams. They knew the world was changing, and now they knew it was close. The following nights brought new signs. Strange lights along the riverbanks, patterns forming in the fields at dawn, waters swirling in shapes too perfect to be natural. Elders began marking the skies with charcoal on clay tablets, noting how certain stars had shifted into alignments that felt purposeful. Some nights, the lights above the horizon flared gently, illuminating the land like a small sunrise. Other nights, the hum in the air intensified, wrapping the city in a warm, soothing vibration. People spoke of the lights with reverence, referring to them as the Watchers. Though they did not yet know their true name, children slept peacefully, their dreams filled with images of shining figures moving through clouds. Farmers found their crops growing more evenly, as if touched by unseen hands. Even the animals grew calm, lying quietly in the fields beneath the glow at time. The people began to accept the presence of the lights as part of their world. They sensed that whatever was approaching was not harmful. It was purposeful, intelligent, and deeply ancient. They felt, perhaps without words, that humanity was being prepared, not for fear or conflict, but for awakening. And so, as the world drifted gently through each passing night, the people waited. They watched the golden lights with eyes full of wonder. They listened to the hum with hearts full of calm. They dreamt of voices older than stars, And deep within the sky, behind the shimmering veil of the heavens, the Anunnaki observed humanity with patience and quiet wisdom. They were drawing nearer, closer than ever before, close enough to touch the world, close enough to walk upon the earth once more. And as you breathe quietly, slowly drifting into deeper calm, you too can feel the soft anticipation of their arrival, a warmth in the darkness, a gentle vibration in the quiet space of your mind. The moment is approaching. The world is ready. Humanity is ready. And the ancient watchers are almost here. The nights grew softer in the land between the rivers, as though the darkness itself had begun to breathe more slowly. Each evening, as the sun slipped beneath the horizon and the last glow faded from the water, a hush settled across the fields and the rooftops of Eridu. The people felt it in their bones, a calmness unlike anything they had known before, a quiet expectation that seemed to rise from the earth itself. The golden lights remained low on the horizon, pulsing gently like distant lanterns carried by unseen hands. They had been there for so many nights that they no longer startled the villagers. Instead, they brought a soothing comfort, a reminder that something monumental was approaching. In those days, dreams grew heavier and deeper. People slept more soundly, slipping into visions that felt ancient and vivid. They saw towering figures walking along the rivers. They saw hands the size of mountains shaping stars. They saw symbols written in glowing light, drifting like mist through the sky. Some awoke with tears on their cheeks, unable to explain the emotions that lingered in their chests. Others described hearing distant melodies, soft, low tones that echoed like voices singing from beyond the edge of the world. These dreams were not frightening. They were gentle, familiar, filled with a warmth that settled into the heart like a forgotten memory resurfacing after thousands of years. As the days passed, the world seemed to shift subtly. The air felt charged, not with electricity, but with purpose. The winds carried new scents, fresh rain, warm stone, distant flowers. Birds circled high above the city in patterns too precise to be accidental, their wings catching the evening light in soft flashes. Children pointed to the sky, their small fingers tracing invisible paths between the glowing clusters of stars. Elders watched with quiet awe, their lips forming the beginnings of stories they had not yet learned to tell to the edges of the fields. Farmers noticed shapes appearing in the morning dew. Perfect circles, spirals, patterns traced by something unseen. They did not disturb these shapes. Instead, they stepped around them reverently, sensing that they were signs of whatever approached. Water in the canals glowed faintly at night, casting shimmering reflections on the mud-brick walls of the city. Some said they heard soft footsteps near the riverbanks at dusk, though no person or animal could be seen. Others reported feeling gentle touches on their shoulders as they slept, like the comforting hand of a spirit ensuring they were safe. Then one night, the golden lights above the horizon rose higher, glowing with a brilliance that illuminated the clouds from beneath. Their soft pulsing grew steadier, forming a rhythm that echoed through the night air. The hum returned, deeper now, rich and resonant. It flowed through the fields, through the homes, through the bodies of every living creature. The people felt it vibrate gently in their bones. They breathed in time with it, as if the world and the sky had synchronized their hearts. The hum was not loud. It was not alarming. It was soothing, grounding, like the distant sound of ocean waves heard in a dream. The villagers stepped outside their homes in silence, drawn toward the glow without needing to speak. They gathered on rooftops, along the riverbanks, in open fields where the sky stretched endlessly above them. Families stood together, holding hands, their eyes lifted toward the shimmering lights that hovered just above the horizon like golden suns waiting to rise. The lights began to move, slowly, gracefully, in a formation so deliberate that even the youngest children understood. These were no natural phenomena. These were beings, intelligences, presences older than the world itself. The lights drifted upward in a broad arc, curving across the night sky. Their glow intensified, unfurling like luminous wings stretching toward the heavens. The hum deepened once more, and with it came a sensation, warmth blooming beneath the breastbone, calmness settling into the mind like a soft blanket placed gently over the body. One by one, the people lowered themselves to their knees, not in fear, not in worship, but because their legs felt weak with wonder. The sky had opened, and what emerged from it was beautiful, gentle, and immense. The lights reached a point directly above the city and hovered there, casting long golden beams that moved like curtains of soft radiance across the rooftops. The rivers glittered as though filled with molten sunlight. The very air seemed alive, shimmering with tiny particles that drifted through the night like glowing dust. Everything felt vivid, sharper, more real, as though the world had slipped into a state of heightened awareness. Then the first shadow appeared within the light, tall, still, surrounded by a halo of soft brilliance. Its outline was not fully clear, its edges shifting like heat rising from desert sand, but there was shape, form, intention. The figure moved with slow grace, descending like a feather through the air, passing effortlessly from sky to earth. The people did not speak. They barely breathed. Every eye remained fixed on the descending form as the figure lowered itself toward the ground. Something extraordinary happened. The plants around it straightened, their leaves turning upward as if greeting an old friend. The water in the river stilled, mirroring the golden glow with perfect clarity. Even the wind paused, as though the world itself was bowing in quiet reverence. When the figure touched the ground, the light surrounding it softened. The form within became clearer, tall beyond any human, shoulders broad, posture serene. Its surface neither skin nor metal nor fabric, but a luminous substance that seemed alive. It emanated warmth, not heat, calm, not power, presence, not dominance. And though no face was visible, the people felt its gaze move across them gently, like the touch of a warm hand on the cheek. No words were spoken, yet meaning flowed through the air. Thoughts, impressions, delicate currents of understanding drifted effortlessly into the minds of those who watched. The figure was not here to harm. It was here to guide, to teach, to awaken. More lights descended next, each forming a tall shape, each radiating that same serene warmth. They arranged themselves in a wide semicircle around the first figure. The ground beneath them shimmered, as if recognizing their presence. The air grew thick with tranquility. The people felt as though they had stepped into a dream that had waited for them since the dawn of the world. One young woman, standing near the riverbank, stepped forward without realizing it. Something in her heart pulled her gently toward the figures. She did not feel bold. She simply felt called. As she approached, the first figure turned its attention toward her. She felt the warmth intensify, wrapping her in a calm so deep that tears slid silently down her cheeks. Not from fear, from recognition. The figure raised an arm. Slowly, gently, a beam of soft light extended from its hand, reaching toward her like a ray of dawn sunlight breaking through morning clouds. When the light touched her forehead, her breath caught, her eyes widened. For a brief moment, she saw visions. Cities carved of crystal, worlds floating among stars, beings moving through light as if it were water. She saw the earth long before humans walked upon it, shaped by hands older than the moon. She saw knowledge flowing like rivers, carrying wisdom beyond imagination. Then the vision faded, the warmth receded, and the young woman collapsed softly to her knees, overwhelmed but unharmed. Her heart felt fuller, her mind broader, as if a door had opened within her soul. The figure withdrew its hand. The other luminous beings moved slightly, adjusting their positions like a choir preparing to sing. The hum in the air intensified briefly, wrapping the entire city in a cocoon of gentle sound. Every person in Eridu felt the same message drift into their minds. We have come. You are ready, we begin. The golden lights rose slightly, surrounding the luminous figures like protective halos. The night sky glowed with a brilliance unseen since the world was young. The rivers sparkled. The fields shimmered. The hearts of the people beat in unison. The Anunnaki had arrived, and as you lie here, letting sleep drift ever closer, you can feel the softness of that ancient moment, the warmth, the calm, the awe. The world, in that quiet night, stepped into a new dawn, and the story of humanity would never be the same again. The night after the arrival of the shining beings unfolded with a stillness unlike anything the people of Eridu had ever known. Even the very air seemed changed, gentler somehow, as though the world itself was exhaling after holding its breath for countless ages. The golden glow that had lit the horizon for so many weeks had now descended into the fields and riverbanks, spreading itself in soft, shimmering layers across the land. The presence of the Anunnaki lingered like warm sunlight resting on the skin, calm and soothing, blending seamlessly into the quiet rhythm of the world. People awoke before dawn, stirred not by noise but by a feeling, an inner pull soft and steady, like a hand guiding them gently toward the riverside. They stepped from their homes in silence, their eyes still heavy with sleep, their minds wrapped in the remnants of dreams that glowed faintly in the corners of memory. These dreams were not random. They were filled with shapes and symbols that repeated themselves. Spirals of light, tall figures walking beside rivers, hands woven from radiance reaching toward them with kindness. Even children awoke with tear-filled eyes, unable to explain the strange joy rising inside their hearts. The river moved slowly through the fields, its surface reflecting the faint glow of dawn mingled with the golden shimmer that still drifted above the water. Birds perched silently along the reeds, watching with an unusual calm. Animals of the village, the sheep, the dogs, the goats, remained still and attentive, their bodies relaxed, their eyes fixed gently on the direction of the luminous figures. It was as though every living creature sensed the same truth. Something extraordinary had begun, something ancient had returned near the center of the fields. Where the ground sloped gently down to the river, the tall, luminous beings stood in a circle. The light surrounding them was soft, warm, not harsh or blinding, but soothing, like the glow of embers in a hearth at night. As the people approached, the beings did not move, but their presence radiated a calm assurance that drenched the fields in peace. There were 8 of them visible that morning, their forms tall and fluid, almost blending into the golden haze that surrounded them. The people gathered in a wide semicircle, sitting quietly on the grass, their eyes fixed on the figures before them. No one spoke, no one whispered. The air felt alive with meaning, as though every breath carried an ancient message. And then, without sound or movement, a single thought drifted into the minds of everyone present. A gentle, deep sensation that felt like a warm wind brushing the inner surface of the mind. It was not speech, not sound, but something more intimate. Communication without words, we are with you. The thought resonated through the hearts of the people like a bell struck softly in the distance. Some gasped quietly. Others closed their eyes, overwhelmed by the gentle power of the message. Children pressed closer to their parents, comforted by the warmth spreading through their bodies. Elders bowed their heads, not out of fear, but out of recognition, as though they were greeting old friends finally returned from a long journey. The central figure, taller than the others, lifted a hand. Light flowed from its gesture, soft, golden, rippling like waves across the surface of a calm sea. The light did not blind. Instead, it warmed. It wrapped itself around the people, lifting some of the heaviness from their hearts, smoothing the quiet anxieties that lingered in their minds. A deep tranquility filled the fields, thick and velvety, almost as if the world itself were drifting into a gentle dream. The thought returned, clearer now, like a melody carried by the wind. You have been seen. You have been known. You have been guided since the first dawn. The people felt the meaning settle into them, not as a lesson, but as a memory flickering deep within their blood, a memory they did not know they carried. They felt at once small and cherished, like children embraced by a parent who had watched over them since birth. The figure lowered its hand, and the golden glow around it deepened. Then another thought drifted into the minds of the people. You are ready to learn. A murmur of energy spread through the gathered crowd. Though no one spoke aloud, they felt their hearts swell with anticipation, curiosity, and a serenity that quieted every fear. They felt, perhaps for the first time, that they were part of something vast, something that reached far beyond the rivers, far beyond the land, far beyond the stars. The luminous figures stepped aside, revealing the ground behind them. Symbols had formed in the earth, bright lines of light shaped into patterns intricate and beautiful, spiraling across the soil in curves and shapes never before seen by human eyes. These symbols pulsed softly, as though they were alive, breathing slowly in unison with the hum of the air. The people recognized some of the shapes from their dreams: circles, spirals, branching lines, all connected by threads of radiant energy. The young woman who had received the vision earlier stepped forward again, her heart guided by a gentle force she could not resist. Her breath trembled, but not from fear. She felt drawn to the glowing symbols, as though they were calling her by name. She knelt beside them, her fingers hovering just above the light. The air warmed around her hand. The symbols pulsed brighter. The luminous figure closest to her extended its hand, a soft beam of light touching the earth. The symbols rearranged themselves slowly, transforming into a new pattern, one that looked like a map, but not of any land known to the villagers. It was a map of the sky, a chart of stars, paths through constellations, movements of celestial bodies. The woman stared, her eyes widening. She felt meaning unfolding inside her like the petals of a flower opening to the morning sun. In that moment, a quiet understanding settled over her, an understanding that humanity had been guided long before they realized it, that the stars were not distant strangers but threads woven into a single tapestry of life, that the knowledge of the heavens was not forbidden, but a gift waiting for the right time to be revealed. The figure spoke through thought again. This is the first teaching. To know the sky is to know your beginning. The villagers felt their hearts lift with wonder. They had always felt a connection to the heavens, watching the stars night after night, tracing their movements, telling stories about their patterns. But now they realized these instincts were not random. They were inherited, placed within them like seeds waiting to bloom. The people whispered silently inside their minds, asking questions without words. The Anunnaki responded through feeling, through gentle waves of understanding that flowed like warm water across the senses. We came when your world was young. We shaped the rivers, we guided the winds, we walked with the early forms, we watched as you learned to stand, we waited for your minds to open. The villagers felt tears rise to their eyes, not from sorrow, but from the realization that humanity had never been alone, never abandoned, never forgotten. The luminous being's presence felt like a continuation of something begun long before memory, something timeless and eternal. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky with soft hues of gold and pale pink, the light around the Anunnaki shifted. It grew brighter, clearer, revealing more details of their forms. They were not rigid or mechanical. They moved like living light, like energy given shape, like beings woven from the same glow as the dawn. The people watched in awe as one of the figures reached down and touched the soil. Wherever its light touched, plants grew taller, greener, fuller. Flowers bloomed in moments. Seeds sprouted instantly, their leaves unfurling into the morning air. The villagers gasped quietly, understanding without words that the Anunnaki were not destroyers. They were cultivators, builders, teachers. The river shimmered with new clarity. The fish swam closer to the banks, unafraid. Even the reeds seemed to sway with a gentle gratitude. The entire landscape felt as though it had awakened, recognizing the presence of beings who had once shaped it. The thought came again, we are not here to rule. We are here to guide, to awaken the memory you carry within. A deep sigh moved through the crowd, a collective exhalation of relief and acceptance. The people bowed their heads, not in submission, but in recognition of the profound gift being offered as the morning continued. The luminous beings began to walk among the people, not touching them, but moving slowly, letting their presence be felt. Children reached toward them with small hands, giggling softly as warmth brushed against their fingertips. Elders rested their palms on their chests, feeling the steady rhythm of the hum within their hearts. Men and women felt their spirits lifted, their burdens lightened, their minds expanding with each passing moment. The Anunnaki did not rush. They did not overwhelm. They moved with the patience of mountains, the gentleness of sunrise, the wisdom of ages. They began to teach. Knowledge poured through the air. Not in words, not in instructions, but in waves of insight. The villagers saw visions of how to shape clay with more precision, how to build stronger homes, how to store grain for the seasons, how to read the shift of winds to predict weather. These teachings came not as commands, but as quiet ideas, thoughts that rose naturally, peacefully, as though whispered by the earth itself. The villagers felt their minds opening, their understanding growing, their spirits calming. It was as if the Anunnaki were lighting candles in the rooms of their minds, one by one, illuminating spaces that had always existed but had never before been explored. The day passed gently, like a dream made of sunlight and quiet revelation. When evening returned, the golden glow still lingered above the fields, and the people knew the teachings had only just begun as they returned to their homes. Their footsteps slow and peaceful, they felt the world renewed, expanded, softened. They felt themselves changed, not with fear, but with purpose, with clarity, with a sense of being part of something vast and ancient. The Anunnaki had come not as conquerors, but as guides, and as the first stars appeared in the sky that night, brighter than ever before, humanity took its first quiet steps into a new dawn, one that would shape the future of their world for ages to come. And as you drift deeper, allowing sleep to settle gently over you, you can feel that same ancient calm, the warmth, the wonder, the soft hum of something older than memory. The story continues, the teachings deepen, and the night holds you in its peaceful embrace. The days following the arrival of the luminous beings unfolded like a gentle dream spreading across the waking world. The people of Eridu moved through their routines with a sense of quiet wonder, as though the air had thickened with meaning and every breath carried a subtle message. Dawn came softer, twilight lingered longer. Even the shadows felt less harsh, as if touched by an unseen hand smoothing the edges of reality. The Anunnaki remained near the riverbanks, their forms blending with the soft glow that clung to the water like floating gold. Their presence no longer startled the villagers. Instead, it felt like a natural extension of the world, like mountains or rivers or the sun rising in the east. When the people walked by, they felt the same gentle vibration beneath their skin, a low hum that soothed their hearts and quieted their thoughts. It became part of life, like the rhythm of breath. But the greatest change was happening inside their minds. During the first light of morning, as mist drifted lazily from the river, the luminous beings would gather in a wide circle. They did not speak with voices. They did not gesture. Instead, a soft radiance would pulse from them, moving outward like ripples in a still pond. The villagers who stood nearby felt the glow seep into them. Not overwhelming, not forceful, but warm and expansive, like sunlight filtering through closed eyelids. Thoughts began to form. Thoughts that felt both new and familiar. Ideas emerged like seeds sprouting in fertile soil. A man who had struggled for years to repair a cracked wall suddenly understood how to reinforce the foundation using angled stones. A mother weaving baskets felt her fingers move with new precision, crafting patterns she had never imagined before. A child looked at the night sky and suddenly recognized shapes in the stars, as if ancient memories had awakened in her innocent mind. Knowledge flowed through the village without words, without lessons, without effort. It was a quiet awakening, unfolding naturally, like flowers blooming at the touch of dawn. The most profound changes were seen in the fields one morning. As the sun rose in waves of soft amber light, the villagers found the Anunnaki gathered near the vast stretches of barley fields. The tall beings moved slowly among the crops, their light brushing against the plants. Wherever their radiance passed, the stalks straightened, strengthened, and glowed faintly, as though infused with new life. Seeds buried deep in the soil responded instantly, breaking open and sending tiny green shoots toward the sky. Farmers approached cautiously, their hearts steady but expectant. They did not need to ask questions. The answers drifted gently into their minds like leaves settling on calm water. Grow with intention. Shape the land with respect. Life answers the hands that honor it. As these thoughts settled inside them, the villagers felt an understanding blossom. They saw the fields not as objects to control, but as living systems with their own rhythms and needs. They began spacing the seeds differently, aligning the furrows along the direction of the sunrise, giving the earth time to breathe between plantings. Tools were reshaped, not because the Anunnaki commanded it, but because the villagers suddenly understood how to balance weight, leverage, and durability. The crops responded. The soil responded. The world itself responded. Food grew more plentiful. Work grew easier. The air shimmered with the quiet satisfaction of a land finally being nurtured in harmony with its own nature. In the evenings, the people gathered by the river where the Anunnaki often lingered. They sat in silence, watching the luminous figures move with slow grace as fireflies danced between the reeds. Children, who had once been afraid of the unfamiliar lights, now approached without hesitation, their small hands reaching out with innocent wonder. The Anunnaki allowed them to come close, emanating warmth that made the children giggle softly, as though touched by sunlight made gentle. One child, a boy with dark curls and curious eyes, approached the tallest of the figures and sat beside it on the riverbank. He said nothing. The figure said nothing, yet a peaceful stillness enveloped them both. The boy leaned against the being's glowing form, drifting into a calm sleep as the stars reflected in the water. His mother watched from a distance, her heart swelling with gratitude rather than fear. The presence of the Anunnaki had become a comfort, like a protective guardian woven from light. As the days passed, the villagers began to understand something deeper. The luminous beings were not simply teaching them skills. They were awakening their minds, expanding their awareness, sharpening their intuition, opening doorways inside their consciousness that had long remained closed. This awakening manifested in strange, subtle ways. Some people began sensing the weather before clouds formed. Others felt the moods of animals or knew when the river would rise. Some saw patterns in the stars that revealed seasons or cycles of nature. A few even sensed the emotions of the Anunnaki, calm waves of purpose, warmth, and gentle curiosity. These abilities were not dramatic or frightening. They were soft enhancements of perception, like seeing more colors in a sunset or hearing more notes in a melody. Humanity was being tuned, refined, lifted slowly toward a new level of understanding. One evening, as the sky darkened into a deep violet glow, a new presence appeared among the Anunnaki. He was taller than the others, his light deeper, shifting in shades of ocean blue and gold. The moment he stepped into view, the air grew warmer, the river stilled, and the wind hushed. Even the other luminous beings seemed to shift subtly, as though acknowledging a leader among them. The villagers felt his presence in their chests like a deep, resonant chord. Though he did not speak with a voice, every person felt the same name drift gently into their minds: Enki, the keeper of waters, the bringer of knowledge, the shepherd of life. Enki stepped forward, his form shimmering like moonlight reflected in clear water. When he raised a hand, small spirals of blue-golden light formed in the air, drifting downward like glowing dust. Wherever they landed, on soil, on reeds, on the skin of the villagers, they dissolved gently, sending a wave of calm through the body. The villagers felt a deep tranquility settle into them, heavier and sweeter than anything they had known. They sensed that Enki was not merely a visitor or teacher. He was a guardian, one who had watched the world through countless cycles, one who had shaped rivers, guided winds, whispered to the early forms of life in ages long forgotten. Enki lowered his luminous hand toward the river. The water responded instantly, rising in slow spirals, forming shapes that hovered in the air, patterns of flowing currents, cycles of tides, movements of underground springs. Then the spirals flattened into rippling images that displayed how water nourished the land, how it moved beneath the soil, how it carried life across vast distances. Humans had never seen anything like it. The villagers felt the knowledge seep into them: how to channel water, how to store it, how to read its flow, how to honor its power. They understood irrigation without being taught. They understood when the river would flood, how to brace their homes, how to protect their fields. Enki did not speak, yet the teaching was absolute. You will thrive. You will grow. You will remember who you are. As the images faded, the villagers felt a warmth spread through their hearts. Some wept softly, feeling the weight of gratitude too immense to express. Even the other Anunnaki seemed to glow brighter near Enki, their forms reflecting his presence like mirrors capturing moonlight. The night deepened. Stars shimmered brighter than any night before. Enki stepped back, his presence settling like a calm blanket across the fields. The villagers returned to their homes slowly, their minds filled with images of flowing water and glowing rivers. They carried the teachings inside them, quietly transforming with each breath, and as the village drifted into sleep, the Anunnaki remained by the river, their lights pulsing gently like stars resting upon the earth. The night held its breath again, the world softened. The hum deepened into a calming lullaby. You feel it too. The stillness, the warmth, the serenity. The story drifts gently forward, like a river carrying you towards sleep. The teachings have only begun, and the dawn of a new age is slowly rising. The days after Enki's arrival unfolded with a softness that seemed to settle over the entire land like a warm veil. The villagers of Eridu felt the world shifting beneath their feet, not in sudden jolts but in gentle waves, as though life itself had entered a deeper, more resonant rhythm. Dawn came with a golden glow that pooled along the riverbanks like spilled sunlight. Nights fell with a calm so complete that even the crickets seemed to slow their songs. Every living being sensed the harmony that now pulsed through the air, a steady hum woven into the very fabric of existence. Enki spent much of his time near the water, his luminous form blending with the shimmering surface. The river responded to him as if greeting an old friend, rising and falling with a subtle reverence. Sometimes he knelt at the water's edge, causing ripples that radiated in perfect circles, each one glowing faintly as if touched by moonlight. Other times he stood silently, watching the current flow with an expression the villagers could not see, but could feel, something like contemplation, something ancient and deep. The people gathered nearby, sitting quietly as they waited. They no longer wondered whether the Anunnaki would teach or reveal something. They simply trusted the rhythm of each day. Lessons unfolded naturally, like petals opening according to their own timing. No one asked questions. The answers came in soft waves, settling into their minds without the need for words. One morning, as a soft mist clung to the fields, Enki raised both hands slowly. His movement drew no sound, yet the air responded with a gentle resonance. Light spread from his fingertips, thin strands of luminous blue and gold weaving together into delicate patterns. These patterns floated upward, merging into a wide net of light that stretched across the sky above the villagers. The people watched in awe, their breath slowing, their hearts sinking into a calm rhythm that matched the pulse of the radiance. As the net shimmered, symbols began to appear across it. Lines, shapes, curves, each glowing with its own subtle warmth. The villagers felt a stirring inside their minds, a memory awakening from deep within. Not memories of events, but memories of understanding. The symbols aligned and shifted, forming sequences that flowed like water. A quiet awareness rose inside the villagers, filling their minds with clarity. Measurement, structure, number, order. Before this moment, people understood quantity in simple terms. Many, few, some, none. They measured fields with footsteps, time with shadows, trade with trust. But now something far greater emerged. A sense of precision, a sense of pattern, a sense of balance. The knowledge drifted into their thoughts like a gentle breeze. One villager felt his hands tingling as he realized how to divide land evenly for planting. Another formed picture thoughts of how to build walls in perfect alignment. A young girl felt shapes settle into her mind like glowing seeds. 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, marking the birth of numbers. The villagers experienced these revelations not as sudden realizations, but as slow, soothing waves of understanding, each one building upon the last. We bring order to what is chaotic. We awaken what is dormant. We reveal what you already carry. The thoughts drifted from Enki like soft warmth radiating through the as the symbols shifted. They formed a new pattern, one that stretched downward toward the earth. A soft path of light extended from Enki's hands to the ground, where the luminescence pooled and spread until it took the shape of a smooth surface, like wet clay ready to receive an imprint. The villagers leaned forward, curious but calm. Enki touched the glowing surface with a single finger. At his touch, symbols formed, straight lines pressed into the light, intersecting at angles, creating marks that felt both foreign and familiar. The villagers watched as the shapes reshaped themselves into 3 parallel lines, then into arrows, then into patterns arranged in rows. These were not markings of art. These were markings of meaning. The villagers felt their minds open wide, like windows catching morning wind. They saw not drawings, but messages, ideas preserved in shape rather than sound. A wave of awe moved through the crowd as the realization sank in. This was writing. Not yet the tablets of clay they would one day carve. Not yet the cuneiform that would echo through history, but the seed, the beginning. The thought rose from Enki gently, like a soft voice speaking in the heart. Remember is to preserve. Preserve is to grow. Knowledge must not fade. Knowledge must live. The villagers felt the truth settle inside them. Already they could see how writing would shape the future, how it would allow them to track seasons, share teachings, record trades, mark births, and pass knowledge to generations who had not yet been born. A group of young men stepped forward instinctively, touched by a feeling they could not name. Enki looked toward them, and a calm pulse of light spread from him to them, sinking into their minds like warm sunlight. They understood then that they would be the first scribes, not priests, not leaders, but keepers of memory. The glowing symbols in the air shifted again, forming new patterns, longer shapes with angled ends, stacked marks that indicated thousands of measurements, spiraling signs that represented cycles of time. The villagers watched as cycles appeared, circles representing lunar months, rectangles marking seasons, arcs showing the movement of stars. They felt these cycles imprint themselves gently into their consciousness. Time was no longer a vague rhythm measured only by hunger or heat. It had structure. It had patterns. It had meaning. The villagers looked up at the sky, newly aware of how stars moved. They understood why the moon waxed and waned. They noticed the subtle tilt of shadows cast by the morning sun. They felt the shift inside them as the pieces aligned. The world was no longer random. It was a dance. Elegant, measured, continuous. Enki let the luminous patterns fade slowly until only gentle glimmers remained. The villagers felt no loss, only fullness, as though they had been given something they had unknowingly waited their entire lives to receive. That evening, as the sky deepened into a dark indigo glow, the villagers gathered once more near the river. The water shimmered with a faint gold, as though storing the light it had absorbed earlier that day. The Anunnaki stood among the reeds, their forms blending with the night like stars descending to walk upon the earth. The people sat in quiet circles, some tracing lines in the soil, trying to imitate the symbols they had seen. Others gazed at the constellations, recognizing new patterns. A few sat still with their eyes closed, letting images drift across their minds like soft waves of insight. Gradually, people began forming simple marks on clay tablets, straight lines pressed with sticks, soft impressions shaped with fingertips. They made mistakes. They erased them. They tried again. All of it felt natural, easy, almost instinctual. Enki watched with a calm presence, sending small waves of encouragement through the air. His light grew warmer when people succeeded, steadier when they struggled, guiding them gently without ever forcing. Because the goal was not perfection. It was awakening. And slowly, humans awakened. One evening, a boy no older than 10 approached the luminous shoreline of the river. He knelt in the soft mud and pressed his fingers into the ground, making 3 small marks in a row. When he looked up, one of the Anunnaki stood beside him silently. The boy hesitated, then pressed a 4th mark. The figure pulsed softly, and the boy felt warmth spread through him. Not praise, but connection, recognition, the sense of being seen. The boy smiled, small, humble, glowing with quiet pride. The village itself began to change. Homes were reshaped. Walls straightened, streets formed naturally. People began working in alignment rather than in scattered effort. Patterns emerged in daily life. Morning tasks, evening gatherings, nighttime observations. Rhythms took hold. Yet everything happened softly, gradually, without disruption or fear. It was as though the world itself were reorganizing according to an ancient, long-forgotten blueprint. Even the animals sensed the harmony. Herds moved calmly across the fields. Birds nested in new patterns, forming clusters near the river. Dogs slept beside the luminous beings without hesitation, their tails wagging slowly as they settled into peaceful dreams. As these changes deepened, something else began to awaken. Something more subtle and profound. Human consciousness expanded, not dramatically, not in sudden bursts, but in quiet, gentle waves. People began sensing things beyond the physical world. Some noticed faint lights surrounding the Anunnaki, auras that shifted with their movement. Others felt emotions ripple through the air like distant vibrations when the luminous beings communicated. A few felt the ground's heartbeat, the river's pulse, the delicate hum of the stars overhead. This awareness brought not fear, but comfort, like remembering a song from childhood or recognizing a distant place once visited in a dream. The villagers felt connected, to the land, to the sky, to the luminous teachers guiding them. One night, as the stars glowed brighter than ever before, Enki stood in the center of the village. A soft breeze drifted through the reeds, and the air felt thick with anticipation. The villagers gathered around him, their hearts beating slowly, their minds settled into the calm rhythm of the moment. Enki raised his hands, and his light deepened into a rich, radiant blue. The other Anunnaki stepped back, giving space as a soft circle of light formed around him on the ground. The thought drifted through the air. Tonight, you see what lies within. The light expanded upward, forming a sphere around the villagers. They felt it wash over them like warm water. In that glow, they saw not the village, not the river, not even the Anunnaki. They saw themselves, not their bodies, not their faces, but their essence, the small, bright spark of awareness that lived inside every person. For a moment that felt infinite, the villagers sensed their own consciousness, soft, warm, ancient, connected to something vast. It flickered inside them like a tiny sun, eternal and peaceful. They saw it, felt it, understood it. You are more than you know. The thought drifted into them with the weight of truth. The light dimmed slowly, dissolving into soft glimmers that drifted upward into the night sky like fireflies returning to the stars. The villagers sat in silence, overwhelmed but calm. They had glimpsed something profound, something that changed how they saw themselves, their world, and their place within it. The night held them gently, like a cradle woven from starlight, and as sleep settled over them, they felt a new quietness inside, deep, soothing, warm. A quietness that whispered of potential, of destiny, of connection with something far older than time. The transformation had begun, and the world would never again be the same. The days that followed drifted together like soft ribbons of mist curling around the branches of a quiet forest. Eridu no longer felt like a small settlement clinging to the edge of a river. It felt awakened, warmed from within by the subtle presence of the Anunnaki and the slow blossoming of new understanding in every human heart. Each sunrise carried a gentle promise, and each night fell with a sense of deep purpose settling into the soil. The homes, the water, and the minds of the villagers' life moved in calm rhythms. People no longer walked with uncertainty but with a slow confidence, as though guided by an invisible current that carried them toward something greater than themselves. Even the sound of footsteps seemed different, more intentional, more harmonious with the land beneath them. All of Eridu seemed to breathe in unison. The most striking changes appeared in the way humans interacted with their surroundings. They began to see patterns in everything, in the arrangement of stones on the riverbank, in the way shadows stretched across the fields, in the shapes of clouds drifting lazily overhead. It was as though the world was revealing its hidden structure, inviting them to read the language of the earth the same way they had begun to read symbols pressed into clay. Enki observed quietly, his luminous form more present than ever. Sometimes he walked among the villagers, a tall figure shimmering like moonlit water. Other times he stood alone on the eastern hill overlooking the village, watching with silent attentiveness as the people moved through their days, each step aligning more closely with the rhythm of the world. That happened one afternoon, when the sun hung low in the sky and cast long beams of gold across the fields. Enki lifted his hand toward a group of villagers who had gathered near the center of Eridu. They felt the familiar warmth ripple through the air, a gentle wave of energy, soft and welcoming. Without speaking, without knowing why, the villagers moved toward an open area of land that had remained untouched for years. The moment they entered the space, something stirred inside them. A soft pressure, a subtle vibration, a hum beneath the earth, steady and ancient, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. They looked around, sensing that this place was special, not because of its appearance, but because of its resonance, a quiet pulse that matched the flow of life in their bodies. Enki stepped forward, and the air shimmered around him. A faint pattern of light formed beneath his feet, concentric circles expanding outward, each one glowing softly before fading into the ground. The villagers felt their breath slow as they watched the circles spread, forming a shape that felt both mysterious and familiar. Without words, they understood what the shape meant at a foundation. The beginning of something sacred. Enki motioned gently to the earth, and the villagers felt the thought drift into their minds. You will build a place of harmony, a place of memory, a place of connection. They did not yet know the word temple, but the meaning settled into them like soft rain soaking into fertile soil. The villagers gathered tools, not crude instruments, but newly refined ones, shaped by the knowledge they had begun to acquire. They marked the ground around the glowing pattern, using sticks and cords to trace precise lines. For the first time, measurement became more than a concept. It became a practice. They counted paces, checked angles, pressed symbols into clay to mark distances as they worked. The Anunnaki stood on the edges of the clearing, their forms shifting with quiet radiance. They did not command or correct. They guided with presence alone, offering subtle waves of encouragement that rippled through the workers like warm breezes. Whenever a villager hesitated, a soft pulse of light from one of the luminous beings steadied their hands and cleared their minds. The foundation took shape slowly, peacefully, like a dream unfolding in waking life. The villagers laid stones in careful patterns, aligning them with the rising sun. They built straight lines and perfect angles without forcing anything. Their hands seemed to remember shapes they had never been taught, and their minds moved in harmony with the subtle vibrations of the earth beneath them. During the process, something extraordinary happened. One day, as the sun dipped toward evening and shadows lengthened across the ground, a young girl placed her hand on one of the stones. The moment her skin touched it, she froze, her eyes widening slightly. The villagers watched in silence as she leaned closer, pressing her palm more firmly against the smooth surface. She felt something. Not heat, not sound, but a gentle flow of energy that drifted up her arm and into her chest. It felt like the soft push of a tide brushing against the shoreline of her mind. The stone hummed beneath her touch, responding to her presence as if acknowledging her. When she pulled her hand back, she looked toward Enki, who watched her with soft, steady light. The villagers whispered among themselves, wondering what she had felt. Enki raised his hand slightly, and the thought drifted into their hearts. The earth remembers. The earth speaks. She has heard it. From that moment, the villagers began to sense the stones differently, not as objects to build with, but as partners in creation. They placed each one gently, listening for the subtle resonance that indicated harmony. If a stone felt silent or heavy, they shifted it slightly until it woke, humming again with that soft, ancient energy. Slowly, the structure rose, not tall, not grand, but pure in its simplicity. A place of alignment, a place of quiet strength, a place where the vibrations of the earth and the radiance of the Anunnaki converged like threads woven into a single tapestry. Once the walls reached a certain height, the Anunnaki came forward. One of them, glowing in warm gold, extended a hand toward the center of the structure. Light flowed from its palm, swirling upward into the air like golden mist. The villagers watched in silent awe as the mist gathered, forming a shape. A dome, soft and translucent, hovering above the foundation. It pulsed gently, casting the entire area in a warm, amber glow. The villagers felt the thought drift across their minds like a quiet breeze. A sanctuary of balance, a place where sky and earth meet, a memory carried forward. The dome remained for several moments before slowly dissolving into faint sparkles of light. The villagers understood, not through words, but through a calm wave of intuition, that this vision would guide the final stages of construction. Over the next days, they gathered clay, reeds, wood, and stones. They shaped everything with care, following the patterns imprinted in their hearts by the luminous dome. They built arches that curved toward the sky, walls that aligned with the path of the sun, and openings that caught the morning wind. Everything felt natural, smooth, gentle. And throughout it all, Enki watched, silent, steady, radiant. At a night, families slept near the half-finished sanctuary, drawn by a sense of comfort they could not explain. The air inside the structure was warmer than the surrounding land, filled with a soft glow that lingered even when the Anunnaki were not present. Children slept peacefully, their dreams filled with calm currents of water and drifting lights. Elders rested without pain. Even animals curled near the walls, drawn by the harmonious energy that pulsed gently from the stones. One night, as the villagers slept, Enki stepped inside the sanctuary. His form glowed with deep blue light, mixing with the faint golden shimmer lingering in the air. He walked slowly around the inner circle, touching each stone with his hand. Wherever he touched, the stone pulsed softly, as if awakening further. The villagers did not wake, but they dreamed. Each of them shared a vision, gentle and soothing, the river flowing beneath the earth, a sky filled with swirling lights, a path made of stars, and a warm presence watching over them. Their dreams merged, weaving together like threads of a single tapestry. For the first time, the entire village dreamed the same dream, a collective dream, soft and luminous, guided by Enki himself. When morning came, the villagers felt refreshed in a way they had never known. Their minds were clear, their hearts calm, their bodies energized. And without speaking, they rose together, moving as one toward the sanctuary. They knew what needed to be done. They completed the structure that day, their hands guided by an unseen harmony. As the final stone was placed on the eastern wall, a soft vibration moved through the sanctuary, gentle yet powerful, like the deep hum of the earth awakening from sleep. A faint glow spread through the structure. The walls shimmered, the foundation warmed. Light drifted upward in thin strands, dancing in the air like floating threads of gold. The villagers stepped back, breathless but peaceful. They had built the first sacred place, not for worship, not for fear, but for connection. Enki stepped inside, and his presence illuminated the sanctuary with a soft, radiant blue. He raised one hand, sending a wave of gentle energy through the space. This is a place of balance, a place of memory, a place where the earth breathes with you. The villagers felt the thought settle into their hearts, and that night, the sanctuary pulsed softly, like a heart learning to beat for the first time. The world was changing, humanity was awakening, and the Anunnaki watched with calm, ancient patience. The sanctuary glowed softly through the nights that followed, its warm pulse blending seamlessly with the rhythm of life in Eridu. The villagers soon discovered that the structure held more than calmness. It held memory. Each time they stepped inside, they felt traces of their earlier thoughts linger in the air, as if the stones themselves were recording the quiet movements of their minds. When they whispered, the sound seemed to settle gently into the walls. When they closed their eyes, they felt the soft hum of the earth beneath them grow clearer. The sanctuary was alive in a way no building had ever been alive before. Life outside the sanctuary changed as well. The villagers began waking earlier, drawn out of sleep not by noise or necessity, but by an inner pull that felt like the soft tug of the tides. When they stepped outside, they noticed things they had never noticed before. The faint shimmering of the morning mist, the subtle vibration of the ground beneath their feet, the delicate patterns formed by shadows at dawn. The world seemed to speak in a quiet language they were finally beginning to understand. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, Enki stood on the northern hill overlooking the village. His form glowed faintly, blending with the pale blue of the early light. The villagers felt his presence long before they saw him. It drifted across the land like a whisper of warm air, touching each heart with the same message: come to the high place. They felt no urgency, only an invitation. Soft, calm, Gentle and in small groups, they made their way up the hill. The air grew cooler as they climbed, and the wind carried with it the quiet scent of distant reeds and river water. When they reached the top, they found Enki standing at the edge of a wide plateau. Beside him, several other Anunnaki figures glowed with steady light: gold, silver, soft blue, warm amber. The villagers gathered in a semicircle around them, feeling the energy in the air shift slightly. Not intense, not overwhelming, just clearer, brighter, like a veil lifting. Enki raised a hand, and a silvery thread of light extended upward from his palm into the morning sky. The villagers followed the line with their eyes, watching as it stretched higher and higher until it merged with a star still visible from the previous night. Then another thread formed, and another in moments. The sky above the hill was filled with hundreds of thin, glowing lines, each one connecting a point on the earth to a point in the heavens. The lines formed patterns, shapes, symbols that rotated slowly, as if the sky had become a vast, luminous tapestry revealing hidden truths. The villagers felt a deep stillness settle inside them. This was not magic, not a spectacle meant to inspire fear. It was revelation, a soft unveiling of something that had always been there, unseen but waiting. The Anunnaki stepped aside, allowing the people to stand at the center of the hilltop. As they moved closer, the villagers felt the glow intensify, not painfully, but gently, like warm water surrounding the body. They felt themselves sink into a state of heightened awareness. The sky itself seemed to breathe, stars pulsed in slow rhythms. The sun shimmered like a distant heart. The moon's faint outline hovered quietly on the horizon. The villagers felt the understanding drift into their consciousness, soft and warm. The sky is not silent. IT speaks in cycles. IT moves with purpose. IT mirrors the world below. They looked upward again, seeing connections that had never been visible before. The stars formed lines, the lines formed shapes, the shapes formed cycles, circles, spirals, arcs. The villagers felt the meaning unfold inside their minds like a flower opening in slow motion. The heavens moved in patterns. Those patterns shaped the earth. Those shapes shaped life, and humans were part of the same great rhythm. The wind shifted, and a soft blue glow spread across the plateau. The villagers watched as Enki stepped forward again, lowering his hand toward the ground. The earth responded instantly, forming a faint circle of light that grew outward until it matched the shape of the star patterns above. The villagers understood. Above and below, sky and earth that is in the heavens, so on the land. The hilltop was not just a place of high ground. It was a point of alignment, where the earth's quiet voice met the sky's ancient song. Enki sent a pulse of warmth through the air, and the villagers felt their minds open wider, like windows letting in warm dawn air. Some saw the shapes of future structures forming in the patterns. Some felt the quiet hum of the earth shift slightly in response. Some simply closed their eyes, letting the harmony settle deeply inside them like soft clay being shaped by gentle hands. The Anunnaki did not instruct, they revealed. They showed the villagers how to look, not with their eyes, but with their awareness. As the light above them dimmed, the star lines faded back into the morning sky. The villagers felt no loss, only fullness. The shapes had imprinted themselves into their memories, calm and clear. Enki motioned gently to the center of the plateau. This will be a place of sight, a place to observe the sky, a place to feel the turning of the world. The villagers understood immediately. Without discussion, without planning, they began clearing the hilltop. Some gathered stones, others smoothed the earth. Children traced circles in the dirt, aligning them with the shapes of stars they had just seen by midday. The beginnings of a simple platform had formed, a wide, flat area marked with evenly spaced stones that pointed toward the rising and setting sun. At night, those same stones aligned with the brightest constellations. It was the first observation point. Not for power, not for worship, but for understanding that as the days passed, the villagers returned again and again to the hilltop. They noticed how shadows moved across the stones at different hours. They observed how the moon changed shape and position. They watched the stars drift slowly across the night sky like glowing travelers. The more they watched, the more patterns they saw. The more patterns they saw, the more they understood. Time deepened. Awareness expanded. The world opened. One evening, as the villagers gathered on the hilltop, Enki appeared again. His presence filled the plateau with soft light. But this time, the glow around him shifted in color. Pale blue fading into deep turquoise, then into shimmering silver that rippled across the ground like moonlit water. The villagers felt a quiet tingling at the back of their minds. Something new was coming, something deeper. Enki raised both hands, and a wave of energy spread outward, slow, soothing, warm. The villagers felt their thoughts still, not forced, but guided gently into calm focus. The sky above them darkened as night settled in. Stars blinked awake, one by one, until the entire heavens shimmered with quiet brilliance. The villagers looked upward, expecting the star lines from before. But this time, something different happened. A soft glow appeared around each person. Tiny particles of light that hovered just above their skin, swirling slowly like dust caught in a golden breeze. The villagers gasped softly, but the feeling was comforting, almost familiar, like waking from a dream and remembering something important. The lights drifted upward, gathering into a single, delicate stream that rose toward the sky. When it reached a certain height, it spread out, tracing the outlines of constellations overhead. The villagers realized the truth. The lights came from them, their own inner awareness, their own consciousness, their own energy. It connected with the stars, forming a bridge between earth and sky. Enki let the understanding unfold inside their minds like warm water flowing through narrow channels. You are part of the pattern. You are not separate from the sky. You carry the light within you. The villagers stood silently, tears forming in some eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming peace that came with the revelation. They felt connected to something vast and ancient, something gentle and eternal. The sky was no longer distant. It was a mirror, a teacher, a companion. The energy around them dimmed slowly, sinking back into their bodies like soft warmth returning to the heart. The night settled again, calm and deep. The villagers felt changed, not in ways they could describe, but in ways they could feel. Their awareness had expanded further. Their connection to the world had deepened. Their understanding of themselves had shifted gently into clarity as they walked back down the hill. They moved slowly, peacefully, their steps guided by the calm resonance in their chests. The world felt brighter. The sky felt closer, life felt fuller, and deep beneath the surface of the earth, something stirred, quiet, ancient, patient, responding to humanity's awakening with its own slow exhale. The next chapter was approaching. Softly, gently, like dawn blooming across the horizon. The nights that followed the awakening on the hilltop unfolded like long, peaceful breaths exhaled by the ancient earth. Eridu drifted into a rhythm that felt older than memory, older than the rivers, older even than the luminous beings who walked its soft, fertile soil. Life in the village moved with a calm that seemed to seep from the ground itself, rising through the feet of the people and settling into their chests like warm embers. Every day felt slightly different, not because of change, but because of deepening. Deepening awareness, deepening stillness, deepening connection. The villagers woke earlier now, not out of necessity, but because the mornings called to them. When dawn light brushed the edge of the river, shimmering in gentle waves, they felt it echo inside their minds. An invitation to rise, to breathe, to listen. Even the animals stirred more softly. Chickens fluttered but did not cluck. Goats stepped silently across the ground. Dogs yawned and stretched with sleepy eyes, then curled beside the sanctuary where the leftover warmth of the night still lingered in the stone. The sanctuary itself seemed more alive each day. Light clung to its walls long after sunrise, shimmering faintly like dew catching the first rays of morning. When villagers stepped inside, they felt a hush settle over their thoughts, as though the air inside the structure carried its own gentle intelligence. Children would pause mid-play when they stepped through the doorway, their laughter softening into whispering curiosity as they traced their fingers along the walls. Adults entered to think, to breathe, to let the stillness reshape the tangled threads of their minds. The sanctuary did not speak, but it communicated in its own quiet way, guiding thoughts into clarity and emotions into balance. Enki visited often. He moved through the sanctuary like a shifting ribbon of blue light, never disturbing, always steady. Sometimes he stood still for long moments, as though listening to something deep beneath the earth. Other times he traced glowing symbols in the air before letting them dissolve into soft dust that drifted down onto the floor. Wherever he walked, the stones warmed slightly, humming with low, comforting resonance, and little by little, the villagers realized something profound. The sanctuary was teaching them, not with words, not with commands, but with presence. They learned to listen with their hearts instead of their ears. They learned to sense the subtle alignment points in the earth beneath the structure. They learned to feel how energy gathered in some corners, flowed through others, and pooled in the center like a soft swirl of warm air. They learned to breathe in rhythm with the stones, letting the gentle heartbeat of the sanctuary guide their minds into deep calm. One day, as the villagers worked in the fields, a soft pulse of warmth rippled through the air. It was not strong, not urgent, just a gentle tug, like the soft pull of a tide brushing against the shore. Every person felt it at the same moment. Heads turned in unison. Hands paused. Children looked upward instinctively. The pulse came again, slow, warm, steady. They knew it was a call. Not from the river, not from the land, from the sanctuary. People put down their tools, wiped their hands on their clothes, and moved quietly toward the glowing structure. The Anunnaki gathered around its outer edge, their luminous forms swaying with the calm wind. Enki stood at the doorway, watching the villagers approach with a stillness that felt older than the stars. When the last person had arrived, Enki extended a hand. A faint thread of light stretched from his palm and connected to a stone inside the sanctuary. The stone responded instantly, glowing with soft golden warmth. Another stone lit up, then another. Soon the entire circle inside the sanctuary shimmered in a gentle pattern that pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat. The villagers stepped inside one by one, feeling the warmth wrap around them like a blanket. This warmth was different from any they had felt before, deeper, denser, almost like a slow wave moving through the body. It was not physical heat, but something softer, something that vibrated through the chest and settled in the back of the mind. When the sanctuary was full, the air changed. A deep resonance rose from the ground, spreading upward through the stones and into the air. The sound was not loud. It was barely a sound at all, more like a presence, a vibration at the edge of perception. Felt ancient, steady, patient. The villagers closed their eyes, letting the sensation fill them. The resonance grew, not in volume but in clarity. It formed a pattern, rising, falling, like the slow expansion and contraction of a great cosmic breath. The villagers' breathing synced with it naturally, effortlessly, until the entire sanctuary inhaled as one and exhaled as one. The air shimmered, light drifted downward from the ceiling, thin and delicate like strands of silk. Each strand carried a faint color, blue, gold, silver, pale green, twisting gently as it descended. The strands did not touch the ground. Instead, they floated above the villagers' heads, forming a soft canopy of glowing threads. The villagers felt the energy settle over them like the quiet weight of a warm blanket. The resonance deepened further, and a soft vision blossomed inside their minds. Not one mind, but all minds at once. A vast sky, a great turning wheel of stars, lines of light forming pathways through the heavens, a gentle hand guiding those pathways into alignment. The villagers felt the message rise inside them without a single word being spoken. You are part of a greater pattern. The world breathes with you. The sky moves with you. The earth listens to you. The vision shifted. They saw rivers bending and curving according to unseen lines beneath the ground. They saw clusters of trees growing where energy gathered. They saw the sanctuary glowing in the night like a small star resting on the earth. They saw themselves, men, women, children, moving in harmony with these lines, guided by instincts they did not yet fully understand. Then the vision deepened further. They saw themselves in the future. Not their bodies, but their essence, evolving, softening, awakening. They saw knowledge rising like dawn light through generations. They saw cities growing around sacred points of energy. They saw great structures aligned with the stars. They saw the earth glowing where humanity walked in harmony. They saw peace. They saw balance. They saw purpose. Tears fell down some faces, not from sadness, but from a profound remembering. These visions felt familiar, as though buried deep within the human spirit, waiting to bloom. Enki stepped into the center of the gathering. His light deepened, shifting into warm turquoise and soft silver. The strands of light drifting above responded, lowering and swirling gently around him. The sanctuary pulsed in rhythm with his presence. Enki lowered his hand, and a sphere of light formed in his palm, a slow, swirling glow of blue and gold. He extended it toward the villagers, not physically but energetically. They felt it drift into their chests like a warm breath. The sphere carried a message, clear, deep, gentle. You are awakening. But there is more. Much more. That he let the sphere dissolve into tiny sparks that floated across the sanctuary. When a spark touched a villager, a wave of calm understanding filled their mind. The sparks carried images. Energy lines beneath the earth, glowing, branching, connecting, intersections where energy pooled like gentle springs. Places where these nodes sang in harmony with the stars. A map, not of land, but of resonance. The villagers understood. The sanctuary was only the beginning. The hilltop was only the beginning. The awakening was only the beginning. Humanity had stepped onto a path that stretched far beyond their village, far beyond their lives, far beyond the boundaries of time. More sanctuaries would come, more alignments, more awakenings, more connections between earth and sky. Enki stepped back, allowing the vision to settle inside each person like seeds waiting for rain. The sanctuary's resonance softened, fading into a warm hum that lingered in the air. The villagers opened their eyes slowly, feeling calmer than they had ever felt. Their bodies felt light, as though their bones had been filled with warm water. Their minds felt spacious and clear, like open fields under a quiet sky. Their hearts beat in perfect sync with one another, unified by the shared experience. One spoke. Words felt too small, too sharp, too fragile for what had unfolded. Instead, they stepped out of the sanctuary in silence, carrying the warmth with them. The night air wrapped around them gently. Stars twinkled overhead, brighter than before. The moon glowed with soft gold, reflecting the sanctuary's energy across the fields as the villagers returned to their homes. A quiet certainty settled over the land. Humanity had crossed a threshold, a door had opened, a new sense of connection had taken root, and deep within the earth, the ancient resonance shifted, acknowledging the change, responding to the awakening, preparing for what was yet to come. Enki watched from the sanctuary doorway, his form shimmering with soft light. Behind his calm stillness, there was a hint of something else. Something like anticipation, something like resolve, something like a quiet knowing of the path that lay ahead. The transformation was accelerating. The world was listening, and the final phase of the awakening approached. Slowly, quietly, like dawn just beneath the horizon. The days after the great sanctuary gathering passed with a kind of soft stillness that felt almost unreal. The people of Eridu moved through their familiar routines, tending the fields, fetching water from the river, shaping pottery, gathering reeds, but everything felt subtly transformed. Every action carried a deeper awareness. Every moment felt connected to something larger. Even the simple act of walking across the earth felt meaningful, as if the ground responded gently to each step. The sanctuary continued to glow at dawn and dusk, casting soft waves of light across the village. Children played within its shadow, tracing their hands along the stones as if greeting an old friend. Elders rested near the entrance, closing their eyes and feeling the quiet hum seep into their bones. The sanctuary did not speak, yet everyone understood it. It had become a silent companion, an anchor, a reminder, a doorway to something beyond the visible world. Enki watched quietly. He spent more time near the water now, kneeling at the river's edge, letting the current move through his fingers. When he stood, droplets of water glowed softly on his hands before falling back into the stream like tiny beads of light. Some nights, villagers saw him standing motionless on the eastern hill, his form blending with the stars as if he belonged to the sky as much as to the earth. Something was shifting, something was beginning, and something was nearing its end point one evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with deep gold, Enki stepped into the center of the village. A soft ripple of awareness spread across Eridu. People felt it even before they saw him. They stopped what they were doing, hands still holding bowls, tools, reeds, and turned toward him with quiet anticipation. When Enki raised his hand, the wind slowed. The air thickened slightly, warm and comforting, like a blanket settling gently over the land. The villagers gathered in a wide circle around him, forming a ring of calm, steady hearts. Enki extended both hands toward the sky, and a soft beam of light rose from his palms. It drifted upward like a slow-moving flame, stretching higher and higher until it reached the twilight sky. When it touched the first faint star, something remarkable happened. The star brightened, not in a sudden flash, but in a slow, steady bloom of light, like a flower unfolding in the quiet of night. The glow spread from star to star, forming a gentle arc across the heavens. The villagers watched in silence, their hearts beating softly in their chests. They felt it inside them, the same soft bloom of light stirring within their minds, illuminating corners of awareness they had never sensed before. It was like remembering something ancient, something forgotten long ago. Enki lowered his hands, and the villagers felt the message drift into their minds that it is time, and no fear accompanied the thought. No sorrow, only a deep and peaceful acceptance. They knew instinctively that he did not mean the end, but rather the next step. A step humanity was now ready to take. Enki began walking toward the sanctuary. The villagers followed him, not in a hurried crowd but in a calm, unified flow, as if carried by an unseen current guiding them gently forward. When they reached the sanctuary, the stones pulsed softly in recognition, glowing from within. The interior felt warmer than ever, filled with a shimmering presence that seemed to embrace everyone who entered. The Anunnaki gathered around the edges of the circular chamber, their luminous forms glowing in harmony with the walls. Enki stepped into the center. Light rose from the floor, pale gold, soft blue, warm silver, swirling upward in slow, gentle spirals. The sanctuary itself seemed to breathe, its walls expanding and contracting with a rhythm that matched the villagers' hearts. Enki raised a hand, and the swirling light gathered into a single sphere above him. It pulsed once, slowly, deeply, and the villagers felt their minds expand, their thoughts dissolving into quiet openness. The sphere lowered slightly, hovering just above their heads. Then, without warning, it burst, not explosively but softly, into thousands of tiny lights that drifted downward like glowing snow. Each speck of light carried something inside it, a memory, a shape, a feeling, a teaching. When the lights touched the villagers, they felt a wave of deep understanding wash through them. They saw glimpses of the ancient past, vast landscapes untouched by human hands, rivers carving paths through stone, stars swirling in the sky before time had meaning. They felt the early breath of the earth, the stirring of the first seeds, the quiet birth of the first sparks of awareness. They saw glimpses of the future, cities rising in harmony with the stars, great structures aligned with the earth's energy points, people walking with calm clarity, understanding their connection to the world and to one another. They saw humanity reaching far beyond Eridu, carrying the teachings into new lands, new cultures, new eras. They saw themselves not just as individuals, but as part of a greater whole, like threads in a vast tapestry woven from light and time. Enki stepped forward, his form brighter than ever. He placed a hand over his chest, sending a small pulse of light into the center of the room. The villagers felt the thought rise within them like a warm tide that we have guided you. But now, you walk your own path. Some people felt a softness fill their eyes. A few placed their hands over their hearts, not from sadness but from gratitude, deep, heartfelt gratitude that radiated from every part of their beings. Enki lifted his gaze to the other Anunnaki, and they stepped closer, forming a wide circle around the villagers. Their lights synchronized, pulsing in perfect harmony. Slow, steady, soothing. The sanctuary responded. The earth responded. The sky responded. A low hum filled the chamber, growing deeper with each pulse. It was the sound of alignment, earth and sky, humans and Anunnaki, past and future, the seen and the unseen, all humming in perfect unity. The villagers felt themselves sink into the hum, their bodies relaxing completely, their minds drifting into a state of deep calm. They felt safe, held, supported by something vast and ancient. Enki raised his hand one final time. A column of light descended from above, passing through him and spreading across the room, touching every villager with gentle warmth. It reached into their hearts, their minds, their memories, their dreams, and the thought came, not from Enki alone, but from all the Anunnaki together. You are ready. The light dimmed slowly, retreating upward like a tide slipping back into the sea. The sanctuary's glow softened. The hum faded. The Anunnaki stepped back, their forms flickering gently point one by one. The luminous figures began to dissolve, not vanishing instantly, but fading like mist under the morning sun. Their light drifted upward, joining the ceiling glow, then rising further to the open sky. Enki remained the longest. He looked at the villagers, not with eyes, but with presence. A deep warmth flowed from him, wrapping around every person like a final embrace. Then he too began to fade, his form dissolving into soft, drifting particles of blue and gold that floated upward, merging with the night. When the last of his light disappeared into the stars, the sanctuary fell into a deep, peaceful quiet. The villagers stood in silence, and no fear and no sorrow, only stillness. They stepped out into the night. The air felt cool and gentle on their skin. The stars glowed with unusual brightness, as if acknowledging the moment. The moon hung low, shimmering softly across the land. Something had changed inside them, something subtle but immense. They felt more anchored, more aware, more connected. They felt the pulse of the earth beneath their feet, the slow breath of the sky above, the soft hum of life within their own hearts. Humanity had been handed its own future, not with commands, not with control, with awakening as they walked back to their homes. Lights drifted across the horizon, tiny fireflies dancing above the fields. The night air carried the faint scent of warm soil and river water. Dogs curled beside their owners. Children leaned against their parents, sleepy but peaceful. The world felt whole. Later, as the village slept, the sanctuary pulsed once, softly, gently, like a heartbeat acknowledging the beginning of a new chapter. And somewhere far above, beyond the reach of human sight, a faint ripple of light shimmered across the sky, a final echo of Enki's presence, watching with quiet pride as humanity took its first steps into the dawn of its own destiny. The awakening had ended, and the journey had just begun.